South East Radio's Business Matters with Karl Fitzpatrick.
Well, the Society of the Irish Motor Industry recently published its figures for 231 registrations, which confirmed that new car sales have certainly turned a corner in the first part of the year. Brian Cooke is the Director General of SIMI, and he joins us now to discuss the latest figures. So, Brian, what were the headline numbers for 231 registrations this year?
Good morning, Karl. I suppose in short, actually quite positive. We sold over 77,000 new cars in the first 6 months of this year, which is an increase of almost a fifth on last year. But just a bit of a health warning with them. We still haven't quite caught up on pre-COVID levels, so each month we're getting closer and closer. So each month appears to be improving on the previous month, but we're still about 4% behind where we were in 2019. I suppose to put a number on that, nearly 80,000 cars, that's about €3 billion in business, of which the government gets about €1 billion of it. So the numbers are quite significant, and our contribution to both the tax take and to local economies, is underlined by that number.
In terms of the supply chain, last time the SIMI joined us on the programme, supply chain issues were still prevalent. Have they caught up at this stage?
I think to a large degree. I think not for every car and every model, but I think overall the supply is now catching up with demand, and I think that has helped. It's helped the numbers this year. Certainly, some of the cars that were delivered in the first 6 months of this year were cars that were ordered last year. So I think the supply chain issues are certainly diminishing, and I think we're almost there where supply and demand have actually equalised.
So on that basis, what is driving the increase in new car registers this year?
Well, I suppose the big factor is, and I think if you look at our press release every month, is the performance of electric vehicles. They're up nearly 70% this year. They actually accounted for nearly a fifth of the market in the first 6 months of the year. And while we do have a number of unusual factors in the month of June, they actually accounted for nearly half the new car market in the month of June. So the electric vehicle project is really driving the comeback in new car sales.
And one of those unusual factors for the month of June was that Tesla was the best-selling brand in Ireland.
Yeah, that's right, and I think there are a couple of factors there. Firstly, supply issues. Again, a lot of their supply that wasn't there at the start of the year, it has been there at the end of this quarter, and that's not just an Irish phenomenon. I think Tesla were the biggest car selling brand, or certainly the biggest electric vehicle selling brand worldwide during the month of June. So I think that factor is there. I think also it's important to highlight that their two most popular models in Ireland now are both under €60,000, and they both actually qualify for the grant. And the SEAI grant, which was €5,000 up till the end of June, actually is reduced by about 30% from the 1st of July. So I think firstly, supply caught up, and I think a lot of people were anxious to get the full benefit of the electric vehicle grant during the month of June.
And in terms of the government taking that action to reduce the grant by 30%, what is the SIMI's perspective on that?
We're still very early in the electric vehicle project. Between electric vehicles and plug-ins, we now have nearly 90,000 on the road, but we need to get to 10 times that between now and 2030 to meet their targets. So we think we're still at the very early stages of the project. We do think that it is too soon to be reducing grants. I think any support that they can give to people buying electric cars today really is an investment in the future. But what I would say is a €3,500 grant is still quite a significant support. There are VRT reliefs. There are reduced tolls. Tolls went up for nearly every car on July the 1st. It didn't go up for electric vehicles, and it's got low motor tax as well. So there is a basket of support still there. We would have liked to see that the €5,000 support had remained in full. I think our message to government, though, is don't reduce the grants anymore. Over the next 2 or 3 years, we are still at the start of this electric vehicle project.
Does the SIMI feel that the sale of electric vehicles will be affected by the reduction in grants?
The answer to that is that electric vehicle sales will still continue to grow over the coming months and certainly over the next 2 years, but they probably won't grow by as much as they otherwise would have. So we hear that the government is awash with money at the moment. So again, if they want to meet their climate change ambitions by 2030, they need to keep investing in the electric vehicle project.
And for any business owner or manager that's now considering upgrading their vehicle fleet, what benefits are available to them in respect to upgrading to an electric vehicle fleet?
Well, I suppose the first thing they have an accelerated capital allowance, which means they can get, their allowance they normally get for a car is normally spread over 8 years. They can actually get that in year one. So for those people paying corporation tax, there's our income tax, there's a capital allowance. There's lower running costs because the cost of electricity is, particularly, where employees can charge at home. The cost of electricity is significantly less than the cost of fuel. The servicing costs are less. But the purchase costs are higher. So I think it's all about getting this balance, and it's another reason why we need to see the supports remain in place. But there are quite generous BIK reliefs at the moment, which they started to phase out at the start of the year, but there was due to the cost of living crisis, the minister found a bit of extra money to support benefit in kind for company car drivers. And again, I think it's important that is replicated in budget 2024 and that we see those benefit in kind reliefs extended out for at least 3 or 4 more years.
We've focused already now on electric vehicles, but how about plug-in hybrids? And hybrids, are they also enjoying an increase in market share at this present time?
Well, I think the plug-in hybrids have shown a slight increase in market share, while the hybrids have shown a slight decrease. I think if you look at overall, 43% of cars sold so far this year have a battery in them. So that means the number of people who have the opportunity to have an electric driving experience, is nearly half the new car buyers at the moment, and it will go over 50% next year.
In your opinion, Brian, apart from continuing with the existing supports, what further action should the government take to incentivise the uptake of electric vehicles?
The one thing that anybody who drives an electric vehicle is they worry about is range anxiety. And I think if you look at any consumer surveys, the range anxiety is a big issue, which means the ability to charge the vehicle when you go on longer journeys. We're lucky in Ireland, we're actually a small country geographically, so we don't have huge commutes. But if you, say, wanted to go from Dublin to Cork back in a day, you're going to have to be able to recharge it, and you want to be able to do that at a fast charger. So again, the government is putting some support into the rollout of a national charging infrastructure, and while home charging will be the backbone of that, we do need more public chargers so people can alleviate that range anxiety.
So is your call this morning for government to increase the resources they're putting into the rollout of that national infrastructure?
Yeah, I think they have. They have indicated at the start of the year that they were going to put in increased resources to it, but I think they need to maybe even to double their ambition.
Now, parallel to an increase in new car registrations, imports have also declined.
There's a legacy issue there. We've had Brexit, so we've had increased taxes on imported vehicles. So we have duties. In some cases, we've got double the amount of VAT as well. So I think if you look at the import market, it was over 100,000 in 2019. It's now back at more normal levels, and it's probably going to be 50 to 60% of that this year. So that market is going to be challenged. They also have a shortage of used cars in the UK, as we do in Ireland. So I think the supply isn't as strong as it once was.
And last month it was reported that luxury car sales were enjoying a bumper 2023 with a staggering €130 million spent on exclusive car brands in their first 4 months of the year. Were you surprised by these figures, Brian?
The economy is growing. We had 2 years of lockdown, so I think we're coming out of that, so there's probably a bit of a bounce there. But also, the Irish economy is growing strongly, particularly in the multinational sector. So, I mean, it's only anecdotal, but I think that's probably the reason. I think as the economy grows, new car sales tend to grow, and the luxury brands are no different. If the economy is growing strongly, then those people who can afford to buy expensive cars, have a greater wherewithal to do it. I think the other factor is that the level of deposits that Irish people have now has gone up huge. We've got record level of people with money on deposit. They're actually earning very little or even zero, despite the increase in interest rates on mortgage or on loans. The interest rate on deposits is very, very low. It's close to zero in a lot of cases. So there are a lot of people, because, I suppose, of COVID and because of uncertainty, that they hadn't spent for a number of years, and now they find they have more cash than they had even during the Celtic Tiger. So if they've always wanted to buy it, now's the time that they're going to buy it.
Very true. Now, we have discussed the performance of the new car market to date, but how would you assess the activity levels within the second-hand car market at this current time?
Well, I think we've been challenged because if we have a low new car market, and we've had an underperforming new car market since the recession for the last 15 years, that means that the stock of used cars is less, and we plug that gap between 2016 and 2019 by increasing used imports. So I think what has happened in the used car market, there is a shortage of supply because there's a shortage of Irish cars, but there's also a reduction in the number of imports coming in from the UK, largely because of Brexit, but also because of their supply issues. So supply is quite tight in the used car market, which means if you actually have a used car, dealers are very anxious to get their hands on it. So if you're looking at a new car, your used car probably has a good value now, and you'll find even though new cars are expensive, the cost of change may be not as much as you think it is.
As we've just entered the second half of the year, what is your outlook for 232 registrations?
Broadly speaking, we're slightly ahead of July of last year. So I think we'd be quite positive. I think the new car market is probably going to get close to what it was in 2019, which is 117,000. That's still probably 30 or 40,000 less than where it really needs to be if we want to improve our emissions profile from new car sales. But I suppose if you go into a dealer now in the month of July with the 232 reg plate, it's an exciting time.
What are the major challenges facing the motor industry over the next 12 months?
Well, I suppose, again, the cost of living issues, which impacts on everybody, both individuals and businesses. So that may make consumers reluctant to buy a new car. The actual cost of manufacturing cars, again, as part of the whole inflationary issue and issue throughout Europe and the rest of the world, again, means cars are more expensive to manufacture. As an industry in Ireland, we're really impacted by government taxation policy because we've got very high taxes on new cars. So I think the budget, again, creates more uncertainty. We were probably happy last year that the budget was 3 or 4 weeks earlier than it normally is because, it created the certainty for January sales. So I think, we will be concerned about the incentives for electric vehicles, but also for VRT on fossil fuel vehicles. So I think for us, we need stability. So we would like to see no increases in taxation and an extension of the support for electric vehicles at the current levels.
And Brian, finally, what percentage of new cars purchased in Ireland are financed, and what impact will continued increases in interest rates have on this?
Well, I suppose there isn't a precise number on that, but probably in terms of private sales, which probably account for about 2/3 of the market, we're probably talking about 2/3 of those are sold on finance. So if interest rates go up, clearly that's going to impact on that. But there are ways. People can extend the term, or they can look at an alternative product such as a PCP instead of maybe a traditional hire purchase. Or what we've seen in the UK, and we might see, is some personal leases come into play here as well.
Well, if you've just tuned in, that was Brian Cooke, the Director General of SIMI, and I'd like to thank Brian for analysing the performance of the motor industry for us this morning.
Southeast Radio's Business Matters with Karl Fitzpatrick.